Next up on GreenCars, the podcast, it's the best of episodes 1 through 6, where we introduce you to the electrified world on wheels. And it all starts right now. Dave, let's go.
I'm coming.
Welcome to Best of GreenCars, the podcast. I'm Trish Close.
And I'm Dave Nichols. Today we look back at the first 6 scintillating episodes of GreenCars, the podcast, where we learn about things like range anxiety. What is it and how do you make it go away?
Yeah, I learned a lot in those first 6 episodes, that's for sure. We also visit the LA Auto Show, where we check out some of the latest EVs by manufacturers like Ford, Toyota, and Kia.
Right, and Trish gets to drive the Ford Mach-e, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and she learns about things like how cold weather affects EVs and stuff like that.
Right, yeah. That was a fun little adventure in the Mach-e, and now I see the Mach-e everywhere when I'm driving. And no one lets me take it for a test run.
Oh, that's
Their
sad.
car, yeah.
That's sad.
I know, it's a bummer. What else? Oh, that antique electric motor car.
Yes.
We check that out. That still runs. And then we also take a look back at the history of EVs. They're
The entire
super
history.
old. They're really old.
Yeah, over 100 years. And we interview Baywatch star Alexandra Paul. She was terrific.
Fascinating interview. So many cool things, conversions, classic gas cars turned EV. It's a lot of ground to cover, Dave.
Yep, and we better hurry up. We don't have much time. Today we're looking into range anxiety. And that has nothing to do with road rage as far as I know. Trish, what do you think of range anxiety?
I have never given range anxiety really much thought at all. I don't have an electric vehicle, but I do know that feeling when you're on a long road trip, you're running low on gas, and you have no idea where the closest gas station is.
Yep. I asked one of our producers to define range anxiety, and he thought it was a fear of ovens or stoves.
Yeah, that's not right.
I don't think so. As it turns out, range anxiety has to do with the fear that your all-electric vehicle is going to run out of electricity when you're on a road trip, or charge anxiety, which is having the fear that you won't find that charge station when you need it. But range anxiety is actually cited as one of the reasons why people stay away from buying an electric vehicle.
I've heard, though, once you buy an EV, something very interesting happens. You realize that your car is basically a device, much like your smartphone or your laptop, and how often do you run out of juice on those?
Right. It's all about planning ahead, right? So most EV owners simply plug in their cars overnight, and that way every morning it's like having a full charge of electrons.
How many miles do you drive in an actual day, though?
According to the Department of Transportation, the average American only drives 37 miles a day.
So that means owners of plug-in hybrids may rarely use any gasoline at all unless they go on a long road trip.
Right, and EV technology and battery technology is improving by leaps and bounds, adding more range and more EVs capable of traveling from 200 to 300 miles. That's kind of normal now. My neighbor has a Chevy Bolt, and she gets 259 miles on a charge. So she only actually charges it overnight, like once a week.
Wow. So for most people, range anxiety really only exists if you know very little about electric cars, and EV owners soon find that their worry over running out of electricity is really unfounded.
Right. And if you're on a road trip, you know, you've got in-dash navigation to find out and there's smartphone apps too to show you where the next charging station is. So it's really not a problem. And it takes about a half an hour to charge up your vehicle on level 3 charging. So you can have lunch and then you're back on the road again.
I've also read the number of charging stations has actually doubled, right? In the last 2 years, now 162,000 stations currently available. Right.
And that's going to quadruple in the next couple of years. By 2025, it won't be a problem. You're going to be able to find a charging station, you know. So what do EV owners think about range anxiety? You know, people that already have one, do they have this problem? We sent our own David Biondi out to ask them exactly that.
I have taken up to Eugene and a few times to Portland, but, you know, I don't go too far, but I do enjoy driving it more so than a gas vehicle.
Before you had the Bolt, what was your feeling about range anxiety? Was that an issue?
A friend of mine has a older Leaf, and he gave me all kinds of fear. And he told me that basically I went up hills or in the wintertime I was going to have some serious issues. And so when I bought my Bolt, I had some real misgivings because I bought it in Klamath Falls and I had to drive it over the mountain at nighttime, it's pretty cold. And I was wondering if I was going to make it home.
Before I got an EV, I was nervous because I was born in Detroit. My grandfather, my dad, my brother, they all worked for Ford at one point in time. I was part of that Motor City culture. And in our society, we often don't think about filling up with gas because there's a gas station on every block almost. So we don't worry about that.
Yes, range anxiety was an issue before, but I worked through it and it didn't take me very long, and I'm happy I did it. It's a quieter ride. It's easier for me.
Before I bought an EV, my range anxiety was pretty extreme. I didn't think I would get where I needed to go.
So how did you deal with that? Did you do research, or what did you do to kind of overcome the range anxiety and get yourself into an electric vehicle?
The research I did was to look at what other people's experiences were. And there are people who were saying you're going to have problems, but a lot of them weren't EV owners. And people who are EV owners were doing great, so I thought I could do great as well.
I think one of the primary choices in my first electric car purchase was the range it would get. Back in the day, we didn't have a lot of options. There were 90-mile cars, 100-mile cars. That was all you could get. But there was a time period where my wife owned a 300-mile electric car, and I was going to buy an 85-mile electric car. And I think if you have a two-car family, that's a pretty good combo because you've got a car that'll go a little farther, and then you got one that would just run around town for groceries and errands and whatnot. So you could contend with that.
I would say if you're jumping in from a gas vehicle to an electric vehicle, that don't overthink it. It is a lot simpler than you think.
Okay, is there anxiety? Yes, but a little tiny bit. I think it's just a matter of sort of changing your mindset. And to be honest with you, gas car drivers do this also. When they're in the city or in a populated area, they don't think twice about it. It's easy. But if you're out in the sticks, if you're driving from, I don't know, let's say Vegas to Ketchum, Idaho, and you're going to be on a lonely 2-lane highway with many miles to go, you will inquire. You'll look in. You'll make sure that there's going to be a gas station within 50, 60, 70 miles. And even on some big interstates in the West, we have signs that say next service 112 miles so that people can prepare for when the gas will be available. It's the same thing we do in an EV.
So there is a little fear of running out of juice, but as we just heard, it fades pretty quickly.
Right.
Okay. And that takes us to the LA Auto Show. Each year, automakers show off the latest designs and technology to whet our appetite on things to come. Our own David Biondi brings us the latest from Toyota, including the hydrogen-powered Mirai.
All right. Hello, everybody. I'm David Biondi, and we are here with Maggie.
Hi there. Thanks for having me.
And Maggie is with Toyota, and we're going to be talking about here at the LA Auto Show. Toyota's got a huge area here. So right now, we're standing by the hydrogen Toyota. Maggie, do you want to tell us about this?
I would love to. This is the Toyota Mirai. It is our mass-produced hydrogen fuel cell vehicle. It's available in California, Hawaii, and many other countries. And it's a zero-emission vehicle that uses hydrogen as fuel with up to a 400-mile driving range. And it only takes 5 minutes to refuel, and you're on your way.
So it was only available in certain markets. Is there a reason for that they're only available in those markets?
Yes. So you do have to go to a hydrogen refueling station. And in the state of California, there are close to 60 fueling stations with funding for 200 stations. So more are on the way.
Wow, that's amazing. And not a lot of people know about hydrogen cars. So what was Toyota's decision to have this here and make a hydrogen car?
Well, Toyota actually started working on the Toyota Mirai at the exact same time as the Toyota Prius. So the word Prius means to go before, and the word Mirai means future. So Toyota was looking at the Toyota Mirai, the hydrogen fuel cell technology, as being part of the future of the automotive industry, and the Prius was getting us there. So this is an alternative to an electric vehicle, but it is very much an electric vehicle with zero emissions and an electric motor.
And Maggie, why don't you tell us about this Prius?
Now, the Prius is the best-selling hybrid in the history of the world. And Toyota actually unveiled the brand new redesign of the Toyota Prius at the LA Auto Show last year. And my goodness, it is a jaw-dropping design. It has been such a hit. It is beautiful, it is sexy, it is sporty, and it is faster and more fuel efficient than ever. So the new Prius hybrid will get up to 57 miles per gallon. Unbelievable. And the Prius Prime, which is the plug-in hybrid electric vehicle, will get 44 miles on just electric range before it switches into hybrid mode.
I've got a prediction for you, Dave.
Yeah,
for 2024.
I'd like to hear it.
Okay. Yeah. 2 words, glove box microwave.
Oh, Oh, I kind of love that.
I mean, long road trip, you need a little popcorn snack. Beep, boop, 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 done.
Maybe a little mini pizza.
Whatever you'd like. That's the beauty of a glove box microwave.
I love that.
If we're not working on this, someone should take some notes, make it happen.
Yep. And you know, our producer has a prediction.
Mm-hmm.
He thinks that EVs will turn into transformers and have laser beam headlights.
I think the microwave's probably a little ahead of that.
I would put it ahead, yeah.
Let's get to a serious prediction. What's your prediction for 2024?
I think we're going to see a lot more hybrid and plug-in hybrid sales as people take their time and, you know, kind of use them as a gateway to get that all-electric vehicle so that by 2030, they're ready.
Well, and consumers are driving this idea.
That's very
I know.
clever.
I came up with that all on my own. But it's true. I think the idea of an all-electric vehicle is a little intimidating. Hybrid, plug-in hybrid, we're getting comfy with the idea of driving an all-electric vehicle. It truly is the gateway car. So it will be interesting to have this exact same conversation in a few months and see where everything is.
Hey, y'all, on the set of GreenCars, the podcast, talking about episode 3. It's all about the EV experience. I get behind the wheel of a Mustang Mach-e for the first time. So if you want a good laugh and you want to learn some stuff, tune in. You can watch it on our YouTube channel, GreenCars HQ. You can listen to the podcast pretty much wherever you like to listen to podcasts.
You've been wanting to get behind the wheel of an electric car for some time. Well, what are some of your first impressions?
The Mach-e is very fast, very cool, a really interesting car to learn when it comes to EVs. But you have to understand, Dave, when I went to go pick up the Mach-e, I knew very little about this particular car, but EVs in general. And it's unlike any other car that I've ever owned. In fact, after the brief tutorial, driving off the lot, I had this feeling like all of a sudden I just don't know how to drive this car.
Luckily, Trish recorded every moment in and out of the Mach-e. So we'll be seeing more of that in just a few moments, learning about driving green. Let's check out a little preview.
Day 2 of driving this electric vehicle. I've had some time to think about my first impressions on the car. You know, when you get a brand new vehicle, there's obviously a learning curve that comes along with that car. But when you have an electric vehicle, I feel like there's a whole different curve. There's a new technology, obviously, that's specific to an all-electric vehicle, but there's also different driving modes that you have to get used to, just different technology in general that comes with having an electric car. So I will say this, every time I get into the vehicle, I learn something new about what it does, how it works. And that's the other part of it. When you have an electric vehicle, the technology is incredible. And I feel like if I don't use that technology, then I'm not using the car to the extent of what it was designed and built for. It's really quiet, and that takes a lot to get used to after driving a gas-powered vehicle. I don't know when it's on. I don't know when I've turned it off. I didn't even know if I locked it yesterday, but then I found out it automatically locks. So yeah, again, a whole new learning curve that comes with this vehicle. But it's fun. I will say that. And when you hit it's not really a gas pedal. I'm going to call it the go pedal. When you hit the go pedal, it goes and it throws you back in the seat. And I kind of like that. It's almost like driving a golf cart, only in the way that when you don't hit the go pedal on a golf cart, it just sits there. This car just sits there. You have to hit the go pedal for it to go. Does that make sense?
Dave, does that make sense?
It does make sense. It's called an accelerator.
An accelerator.
Yeah.
Thank you for teaching me some things.
One thing I can definitely say right off the bat, this would take some getting used to. I don't know if I locked it. I don't know if it's on. I don't know if it's off. It's so silent. It's so quiet. I'm sure if there were no dings or sounds when you got into the vehicle or when you turned off the vehicle, it would be a little challenging. Whoa. It throws you back in the seat a little bit, which I kind of enjoy. The owner of the Tesla was most certainly checking out my ride.
Here's our own David Biondi with new vehicle ideas coming from Kia.
We're here at the 2023 LA Auto Show, and I'm here with James Hope with Kia, and we have two amazing concept EVs behind us. And James, thanks for your time today.
Oh, it's my pleasure, David. Thank you for having me.
All right, so let's get into this. So what two vehicles do we have behind us here?
Yeah, so today's a great day at the LA Auto Show for Kia. We've introduced a number of new models, but the two that you see behind us, the green car is the EV3 concept, and the bronze car is the EV4 concept. We're basically looking at near future concepts of what's coming down the road from Kia in the EV lineup, just maybe a few years from now.
So tell us a little bit about them. Can you say any specs or, what's the deal with these vehicles?
So we don't have a lot of specs just yet, but when Kia produces a concept car, generally that means a production car is following. So if you kind of think about where we started with EVs, right? We had the Soul EV a number of years ago, and then we have a Nero EV, and then a couple of years ago we introduced the EV6 and then the EV9 just last year. So this is the continuing forward motion of what we call Plan S, which stands for shift. And we're shifting from ICE or internal combustion over eventually to EVs. So these are smaller versions of that EV platform.
So is Kia looking to completely go EV at some point?
I think down the road, that is kind of where we're going, but it is important to understand that internal combustion engines are purchased by a lot of people, and we have a very balanced portfolio to get us there in the long run, but we have a lot of gasoline-powered cars that are here as well.
Yeah. So this one behind us here, it looks autonomous. It really does. It looks like it could drive itself. Are these vehicles on the way to do that, or...
Well, look, fully autonomous vehicles are a really interesting thing to consider. And, we have a number of ADAS technologies that are getting us there, right? We have ADAS and ADAS 2 that offer some hands-free driving, and we'll get there eventually. Not ready to say whether these cars are going to be fully autonomous just yet.
Right. So what would really set these apart from other EVs as far as, just everything that's out there right now with range and everything like that? Is there anything you can tell us about that?
I think really what we're looking here is at a very attractive price point. Okay, they're built off of our eGMP platform, so it's a scalable platform, which is why you can build an EV9 and then you can come and build a smaller EV3 concept off the same platform. Right. So it gives you that maximum inside space. We're pushing the wheels to the corner. We're talking about something in the $30,000 range.
Okay.
So with that, Dale, what kind of feedback then do you get from people who get behind the wheel of a Mercedes EV for the first time?
The surprise on the, like anything, of course, if you came from an ICE or a gas version prior and then you go to an EV, the number one question is or feeling is, I can't hear anything. Of course, there is no engine running, and then that's kind of like the best part to it. But at the same time, they don't know if it's on, they don't know what to do. But then I kind of let them know, hey, just pretend it's a regular car, and then you get to go. So because they don't know how they're supposed to start the car, how it's supposed to move, and how do you change gears. I'm like, just position yourself as like a regular car, and you'll figure it out along the way.
We've been waiting to see how Trish is making out with her Mach-e. So let's just check that out, shall we?
Well, thank goodness for apps. If it weren't for apps and instructions for dummies, I probably would still be here trying to figure out how to charge the car. But I found this charging station. I had to set up Apple Pay to pay for the session. Once I did that, it told me on my phone, ready, go charge. So you take this little plug out and you plug it in, literally like you're plugging in a curling iron or something. It's that easy. So I'm driving the Ford Mustang Mach-e GT, and today I wanted to check out the Blue Cruise feature on the car. Blue Cruise is essentially hands-free self-driving feature. It uses the car's adaptive cruise control that controls the speed and lane centering assistance that controls the steering. Now, Blue Cruise works on pre-qualified sections of highways across the country. We're talking about more than 130 miles of highway. That's where Blue Cruise engages on. Interstate 5, which is what I'm driving right now, is in that network. So you have to make sure a few things are turned on. Like I said, adaptive cruise control and that lane centering assistance. And your hands must be on the wheel. So let's get this started. I'm going to get to a comfortable speed, I'm going to hit cruise control. And Viola, there it is. It says hands-free on the panel in front of me. And the car is now driving itself. You can see the steering wheel make a few adjustments to steering, and I am definitely slowing down because the car in front of me is also slowing down. This is bananas. So I've been reading up on the Blue Cruise feature, and there's a panel right above the steering wheel where there's a camera that watches your eyeballs to make sure that you're paying attention to the road. So I have a question for all of the frequent hands-free drivers out there. What are you doing? I mean, is it just a relaxing drive on your morning commute? Are you sipping your coffee, munching on that bagel? I'm pretty sure you can't check emails and stuff. So what are you doing? I gotta know. I need answers.
Dropping the electric vehicle off back at the dealership. A huge thanks to Crater Lake Ford for being so awesome to me and helpful while I drove this stunning car. I have to say goodbye to it. I'm a little sad. It's been so fun over the last 7 days getting to learn all of the technology that is specific to an electric vehicle. This was my first time driving an electric vehicle, so a lot to learn, obviously. Did I have range anxiety? I had charging anxiety. I wasn't sure quite where to charge it, how to charge it. But with a car like this, you kind of just figure all that stuff out. Learning the technology, again, that's specific with this vehicle, like Blue Cruise, the fact that when you pop on the freeway, it drives itself on the freeway. Bananas. So really cool stuff about this car. And I'll tell you what, it's quite the looker. Lots of attention driving in this car, which for me was a little fun. Top 3 questions people want to know. Is it fast? Is it fun? And where's your frunk?
Where is your frunk? Today we're going to talk about a very different kind of range anxiety. I'm talking about the special fear that happens when you are in a snowstorm stuck and your EV range is dropping drastically due to the freezing conditions. Have you ever heard of what happens to EV batteries in real cold weather?
Well,
Trish?
I experienced this, I feel like, Dave. Remember when I was test driving the Mustang Mach-e? We have some video right now when I took it out to the Applegate Valley. If you're watching this episode, you can see it in the monitor behind us. It had snowed that morning. We had fresh, beautiful snow on the mountaintops. But I'm panicking because I'm watching the range in the car drop little by little as we keep driving. And then especially, I call it the butt warmer, when you turn on the heated seats and the steering wheel, then you're watching that range go a little bit further and a little bit further. So not only do I have range anxiety at this point, now I have cold weather range anxiety too. It was a little too much in one morning.
Okay, then imagine adding on top of that you're in an urban area stuck in a very long line of other EVs that are waiting for a charge. You're waiting for hours.
Right. Yeah.
This actually happened recently in Chicago. And amazingly, the Today Show was there to pick up on it. And they had people waiting all day to get a charge. One Uber driver said he was turning in his Chevy Bolt to get a gasoline vehicle again because he just couldn't take it anymore.
Yeah, he'd had it. Had it. I read that according to AAA, EV batteries can lose up to 41% of range when the temperature drops below 20 degrees. And on top of that, it takes much longer to charge at charging stations when the weather's that cold. During a recent blizzard, some EV owners waited more than 6 hours for a charge, and others had to resort to having their car towed home. You know they were not happy.
No. Now, also, we should point out that all vehicles lose range. Gasoline vehicles do as well in extreme cold conditions. But EVs are especially sensitive.
They're sensitive.
Yeah.
EVs are sensitive.
No, I have an idea. Just to calm things down a bit, let's go to some video and see what happens when Trish is waiting for the charging station attendant to arrive, shall we?
Okay. I made it to the charging station. Is there an attendant that comes out? Should I just wait? See if someone will help me?
You love that clip.
I love that clip. You're waiting for the little guy to come out, the little charging station attendant guy. What, did you think he'd have like a little jumpsuit with his name over the lapel and maybe a little hat with a cartoon lightning bolt?
Joe,
Yeah.
Yeah. Joe, I was waiting for Joe to come out.
Episode 5 is maybe one of my favorites so far. It's all about the history of EVs. Did you know some of the first EVs were created in the late 1800s, or at least the ones that worked? We also have a very special guest on episode 5, actress and badass activist Alexandra Paul. She's on a little show called Baywatch, you may remember. She talks about her journey with EVs, which includes a protest and an arrest. It's a lot of fun.
Today, we're going to reveal to you the amazing history of the electric car. Trish, you know, many people believe that Nikola Tesla invented the EV back in 1857, but that is clearly impossible because he was only about 2 years old at the time.
Okay, so you're saying Tesla did not invent the EV.
That is what I'm saying.
Okay.
We take you now back to a time before gasoline-powered vehicles, before they littered the interstate highways because there were no highways.
Right.
This is a time of long ago, Trish. This is a time when buggies, horses and buggies, and things of that nature were the order of the day. There were no cars.
This sounds like a history lesson.
It is that,
Okay,
yes.
all right.
It is that. Our producer thought that the Tesla vehicle was actually invented by Tesla the band from Sacramento because he's from Sacramento, and he was hoping to get backstage passes.
Oh, that producer of ours.
I know. You know, a number of inventors were playing around with the idea of putting an electric motor into some sort of moving conveyance back almost 200 years ago. It was Scottish inventor Robert Anderson who first produced an actual full-size working horseless carriage in 1838.
1838. So you're right. Nikola Tesla wasn't even born yet. You were around, though, 1838?
Yeah, I remember when they were pushing that thing through the streets. You know, dirt streets. That's just all they had.
Right.
And they were pushing it through there, and I said, look at that. That's never going to fly. I remember.
Okay.
I was about 40.
Okay. All right, get back on track.
Okay. And so while Anderson's early EV raised a lot of eyebrows, it was really not very practical because the batteries in it were not rechargeable.
And weren't there experiments with electric trains going on right about at that same time?
Yes, there were.
Okay.
The first practical electric train was developed by another Scot named Robert Davidson, who tested his train on the Edinburgh-Glasgow Railway in 1842. But the limited power of the vehicle and crude batteries kept it from being practical. And after its test run, steam locomotive railway workers destroyed the prototype because they saw it as a threat to their future job security.
Wow, unbelievable. This really is a history lesson today. Who could have predicted polluting greenhouse gases from all of those cars would lead us to rethink electric cars?
And before we continue on this epic journey, our own Jesse Hitty recently discovered a 1914 Detroit Electric, the car that Henry Ford's wife Clara drove, and it's still running.
Wow.
All right, I'm Jesse with GreenCars, and I'm here at the Oregon Electric Vehicle Association's EV Test Drive event in Portland, Oregon. And I'm here with Tony, who's got a very, very unique EV. So, Tony, what is this?
Well, this is a 1914 Detroit Electric, and it comes from, we have it in our museum in Hood River, the Western Antique and Automobile Museum, WAM we call it. So it's a 1914 Detroit Electric. So it was manufactured in Detroit by the Detroit Electric Company, which was previously the Anderson Carriage Company. It has 2 battery packs, one in the front, one in the back. Each one would have been nominally 42 volts. It has a 3 horsepower DC motor, has 5 speeds.
Okay.
And it was marketed for rich urban ladies, because the car was very expensive. In 1914, this car cost $3,200, which is $100,000 in today's money.
How long would it take to charge one of these?
This would charge overnight. It'd take about 8 hours.
Okay. Wow, okay. And about how much range do you get?
80 miles. Back then,
wow.
It had a range of 80 miles. Only a speed of about 25.
That is pretty impressive. Okay. Well, is there any other nuances to this car that you want to point out?
Well, it's kind of interesting in the fact that it doesn't have a steering wheel. It has a steering tiller.
Oh, okay.
That's how you steer it. And it has a speed tiller, which it had 1 of 5 speeds that you could select, and that's how you made it go.
Wow, okay. And then you've got a pedal here on the floor, it looks like.
Yeah, it does have a rear wheel brake Also, this car was one of the very first cars to have curved glass windows in it.
Wow.
Unique. Yeah.
And it's even got like shades and stuff too.
Cut glass interior lights, a bud vase, shades. It was a very luxurious car. And in fact, there's a car identical to this one in the Ford Museum because this is the car that Henry Ford's wife drove.
Wow.
The Model T. She didn't want to hand crank it and she wanted it nice and quiet.
Wow, that's definitely luxury, that's for sure.
So that led then to the modern EVs that we enjoy today?
Almost.
What are you talking about, Dave?
There was a bit of a hiccup along the way.
Okay.
It was called General Motors EV1. Its production and then complete destruction were the foundation of a 2006 documentary called Who Killed the Electric Car? The film by Chris Payne explores the roles of automakers, the oil industry, the federal government, and California in limiting the production of EV technology.
But the California Air Resources Board passed the zero emissions vehicle mandate in 1990.
And the film explains how that mandate was reversed after CARB relentlessly was being pressured by big players in the oil industry, automakers and manufacturers, and wanted to make sure that the gasoline kept flowing.
Wow, crazy.
Yep. Which brings us to our special guest today, actress and activist Alexandra Paul.
I know her. She was on Baywatch.
She certainly was. She's a longtime EV advocate. Alexandra protested the fact that General Motors pulled back the EV1 in order to have the vehicle destroyed. Alexandra appears in the movie Who Killed the Electric Car and was arrested in a protest that attempted to block GM car carriers that were about to take the remaining EV1 cars off to be crushed.
Whew, Alexandra. We are so excited to have you on the podcast today. Good to see you. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, I'm so happy and congratulations on the podcast. I've seen it and I'm a fan.
Oh, yay. We like to hear that. Before we get into EVs, I have to ask, you've been acting for a hot minute. You've done some fabulous work. How did you get into acting?
I got into acting because I was modeling first in New York City, and a TV movie back then in 1981, there were ABC and CBS TV movies of the week. I'm dating myself, but yes, I was 18 and I auditioned as a model for a TV movie that was about models. And so they were looking for an unknown girl to play the lead. And I was the lucky girl chosen to move to LA and shoot this TV movie, which did really well. It was called Paper Dolls. And it also starred Daryl Hannah. And it was one of the top 5 TV movies of that year, which was a big deal. And so that helped me so much get into the business.
Oh, for sure. And a lot of people obviously know you from your days on Baywatch. But you've done so many other things and you've had this incredible career acting. That's not even talking about your journey with electric vehicles. So let's talk about that a little bit. Why EVs and what were some of your first electric vehicles?
Oh my gosh. Okay, so I came to the electric vehicle world as an environmentalist. A lot of the early adopters were people who either were really technical whizzes and very interested in the technology, or they wanted to be first on the block. I didn't care about either of those things. I didn't care about cars at all. I was an environmentalist. And in 1989, the Exxon Valdez spilled. And I was all like up on my high horse. I even wrote in with soap, boycott Exxon on the back of my GM Jimmy, which was an SUV. Now it looks like a tiny, tiny SUV, but it was an SUV nonetheless. And then I realized, oh my gosh, Alexandra, your car, you are the reason that that Exxon Valdez oil tanker was out there in the first place. So you should stop being a hypocrite and you should start walking your talk. And I got my first electric car in 1990. And it was a Datsun that was converted in someone's garage, and it went 25 miles on a charge.
Wow.
I want to clarify for younger audiences that the Exxon Valdez was an oil tanker that spilled off the pristine waters of the Alaska shoreline. And so it devastated that shoreline. It was a big deal back then.
Well, tell us a little bit about the EV1. How did you come to own one, or did you lease one?
Well, I heard about the EV1. It was much talked about in the environmental community, right? And it was after my first Datsun, I got a second car that went 50 miles per charge, but then I heard about the EV1 that got almost 100 miles per charge. The second incarnation of the EV1 got it like 120 with its Panasonic batteries, but the first EV1 was getting around just under 100, and it looked amazing. It was the only car out there that was built from the ground up to be an electric car. So it was built really aerodynamically, and I applied for it, actually. You had to apply. There was quite a long process on the internet that you had to go through to apply or go into the dealership directly. And on the very first day that they were released to the public, which was in December 1996, I went to the dealership and picked up my car, which was car number 37. It was the first car leased. It was the lowest number car leased to the public. And it wasn't because I was so great. It was just because I picked dark forest green, and that happened to be a low number car. But yeah, so I was ecstatic. And it was like driving a rocket ship. It was such an amazingly high performance car.
Today, we peel back the mystery on how to convert a gasoline-powered car into an electric vehicle. Let's visit the Oregon Electric Vehicle Organization event in Portland, where our own Jesse Hitty found a unique Honda Insight conversion.
Yes.
Well, I'm Jesse here at the Oregon Electric Vehicle Association EV event in Portland, Oregon, and I'm here with Will, and he's got a pretty special Honda here. So tell me, what is this car exactly?
Well, this car started life as a Honda Insight. After GM ceased their production of the EV1s way back when, Honda responded with a car that was very similar. They couldn't get all of the technology, so it was a hybrid. My good friend John Wayland of Plasma Boy fame bought a brand new Honda Insight, took the gas engine out. We helped him get an EV1 power module, which is the electric motor with the differential all-in-one unit, and we transplanted that in to replace the gas engine. So this is a totally electric car, basically an EV2.
Oh, wow, that's great. So when it comes to charging it and stuff like that, how do you do that?
This charges from any regular charger. You can use just about any EV charger. We made 2 or 3 cables, but this will use either, and it'll use all the modern Tesla chargers, the fast chargers, the DC chargers.
That's great. Do you usually charge it at home?
Usually. Find that for general EV driving, and it's the same with nearly every EV, you only charge the thing once or twice a week.
When it is fully charged, how many miles do you get?
We haven't stretched its legs yet.
And how fast does it go?
Oh, this car will do 100 comfortably.
Okay.
Yeah, she's a quick little car. There's no doubt about that. And it's very aerodynamic.
So is there anything else about this car in particular that's pretty special with this particular car?
The lithium battery pack is handmade from lithium batteries retrieved from a crashed Apache helicopter.
Wow, okay. So that's pretty amazing.
Yeah. And we built the modules. I think the big thing is all the hand-built stuff. Everything has to be perfect, picture perfect. And every single function that was on this car new works. The HVAC, the heating, the cooling, cruise control, all the lights, everything. So taking out the gas engine, integrated in an EV1 electric engine, and we have full functionality of a modern-day car.
That's pretty amazing, just all of that detail work that goes into making all that function.
Yeah.
So how difficult was that to do?
It's time consuming, there's no doubt about that. And the biggest problem was that the EV1 motor has 3 times the torque of the gas engine. So a lot of time went into engineering engine mounts that didn't break.
You need probably something like NASCAR level, right?
Oh no, they're not strong enough.
Okay, so I stand corrected. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, well, it's, a gas engine delivers full torque at peak revs. This delivers 100% torque at 0 revs.
That makes sense. That's pretty amazing. All right.
Things have got to be engineered not to break. And
Awesome.
It's a sweet little car.
All right. Well, thank you for your time. I appreciate you telling us all about this car. We'll see you around.
You see the license plate?
AC/DC.
Love it. That's so cool. We talked about the EV1 in our interview with Alexander Paul in the last episode. These guys managed to build a better EV1, which is really cool. But not all EV conversions are based on more modern vehicles, right?
That is true. In fact, last year you found a fascinating older gasoline car that was converted into an all-electric vehicle in the form of a classic British sports car, the 1972 MGB.
So cool. And it was created by a man who has a true love for these old MGs.
Yep, let's check it out.
Trish here at GreenCars event, hanging out with Joe and some really cool cars. Tell me about your vehicle. It was the first one I noticed when I drove up on the lot.
Oh, well, thanks for that. It is a 1972 MGB GT that's been converted to electric.
Okay, so first question, why did you convert this to an electric car?
Well, because the MGB GT is my favorite car in all the world. This is the fourth one that I've owned. So I rebuilt the other ones. I worked at Bramo making electric motorcycles at the time, so I had access to all the components and all the knowledge that it would take to do this, and so it was really a fun project to do.
I bet. Tell me, does this essentially, converting this to electric, make it last forever?
So far it has. It's been my daily driver since October of 2016, and it's got many miles on it. I've raced it, quote unquote. It's an MG, so racing, yeah. Anyway, but I've raced it twice at Laguna Seca. So it's a very capable car. It's as it ever was with gasoline power.
Look at you. All right, take me on a tour. I'm gonna have you tell me what we're looking at right here.
Yes. Okay. So what we've done is we took out 300 pounds of gasoline engine and all of the stuff that goes with it, and in its place, down on the bottom of these three wires underneath there, you can't see it, is the electric motor that weighs 100 pounds and also produces about 100 horsepower, the same as the gasoline engine did, and that's by intent. It could be a more powerful motor if we wanted it to be, but I wanted to preserve the original characteristics of the car. So it is hooked up to an adapter plate, and I run the standard transmission, and the clutch and all the rest of the stuff is just as it was when the car was built in 1972. On top of that, this green box is the motor controller, also known as the inverter. It takes in about 350 volts of DC current in the back and converts it to three-phase AC to feed the motor right here, okay? The silver box on top is a DC to DC converter. It takes in that 350 volts of DC current and converts it, steps it down to 12 volts of DC current to run your headlights and your horn and your turn signals and all the regular car components, okay? So, as I said, there are 8 batteries. Each one produces about 3 kilowatt hours. So I have 24 kilowatt hours on board, giving the car about 100 miles range. These are the last 2 of the batteries back here. Okay. This is the charger. And so I've got the charger wired up right over here to where in the old days you would put the gasoline in.
Oh.
And so I plug it in right here with this plug, and then with this plug over here,
yep,
we plug it right into the house.
Right in the house. You don't have anything special.
Nothing special. And it takes about 8 hours for a full charge, and I can bypass this system if I have a more powerful charging available to me, like at a rest area or something like that, and I can get 230 volts. I can bypass that and charge it in 4 hours.
And so I read you built this with your son?
I did, yes.
How special?
Oh, it was special, yeah. Yeah, and we're still doing it.
And then I heard someone ask you, how much would it take to convert their vehicle something like this? How much would it take? How many man hours?
Oh my goodness. Okay, so yeah, and there's a lot of different ways. Thanks to all these other cars, the more modern cars that we have, there's a lot of different ways to do it now. You know, you can adapt from the frame of a different car and all of this. This one is kind of pieced together, which is beautiful in that you can see all the different components and things like that. That's one way to do it. If you were to do it this way, you would want to count on spending at least $5,000 on batteries and another $5,000 on the motor and the motor controller. Okay, so I would say $10,000 minimum. And then on the labor, it would have to be a labor of love.
Well, it was for you. Your favorite car hopefully lasts forever because of this conversion.
Yes, I think that it's going to last a long, long time. It's showing no signs of age. Like me.
Of course. Me too. Me too.
And see, that's one way to take a car that's your favorite car, the year, make, and model you like, and make sure it lives forever. That was quite a wild ride, Trish. I mean, we went through everything from Alexandra Paul's interview, range anxiety, cold weather, different kinds of anxiety, like charging anxiety.
No kidding.
Stuff like that you experienced yourself.
Yeah, lots of anxiety. I need to recover. I'm in therapy over it. My favorite was the Mach-e. That was so much fun to drive. I'm going to see if I can fool someone to give me another electric vehicle.
Absolutely.
To drive around town.
Yeah. No, that's a great idea.
Well, stay tuned for part 2 of Best of the Best of GreenCars, the podcast. Until then, stay informed, stay charged. We'll see you next time.
Follow us at GreenCars HQ. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Email us, thepodcast@greencars.com.